Hey, I'm John F. Gately. You can call me Jack, broadcasting to you from beautiful Plymouth, Massachusetts. Plymouth, Massachusetts, America's hometown. As Steve Ferguson says, behind enemy lines. Behind enemy lines. So it is now just about a week and half an hour or something like that, that we learned of the passing of Charlie Kirk. You were probably know exactly where you were at this time last week. I was on that little sofa right over there, glued to the television, which is right over here. And exactly a week. I think for a lot of us, depending upon your walk of life, the shock has begun to wear off. I hope. I don't know if we'll ever not be shocked. But like the numbing feeling seems to have gone away a little bit. I think. I know that I felt that way for several days. I did feel better attending the memorial in Plymouth Sunday night. And then actually doing the live show here yesterday at 5:00. I needed that. And I was probably a little bit saltier than normal. So that's the way it is, right? What would you expect? I want to tell you what happened today, because I was really super encouraged by what happened today. And I'm going to tell you about that in a second. But first, I just want to bring up the exceptional Chester Tam to start the show. We're going to get deeper into this teacher association BS. But Chester asks or declares that the MTA is disgraceful in shielding teachers who celebrated the assassination. They are calling schools not to validate accusations by extremists, meaning, of course, like you and me in our extreme theories that, I don't know, murder is bad or something like that. Bostonians Against Mayor Wu chimes in and says they seem to be the extremists. And then Chester Tam says, when did celebrating murder become morally right? And the answer is about last week at this time, approximately. Maybe even before that, now that I kind of reflect upon it. Because, like, for instance, where is Governor Healey's video saying that we have to protect speech? I know she made a statement condemning the shooting. I know that. I think everyone has, except for maybe Mayor Wu. But where is Governor Healey's statement, like a video, saying that we need to stand up for free speech no matter who you are? Remember, Charlie died with the microphone in his hand. When the Democrats and the left departed from the standard set by the ACLU in the famous Skokie, Illinois case, which, not to get too deep into the history book here, was a case by which the ACLU defended the Nazis in their attempt to march in Skokie, Illinois, which was a predominantly Jewish community. And the ACLU made a very compelling argument that said the First Amendment means nothing unless it's for everyone's speech, as long as you're not inciting violence. It's for everyone's speech, because if you only have it for the speech you like, then it's meaningless. And so the ACLU, which is at the time, and maybe even now, I'm not sure, at the time, which is, when was this case? Somebody fact check it, late 60s, early 70s. At the time was an organization that had a large Jewish support base. And I think it still might. So to have this organization that had a large base of support in the Jewish community, the ACLU, supporting Nazis in their ability to march in Skokie, Illinois, was like, wow, they're really living their commitment to the First Amendment. That even if you don't like what was said, we're going to defend your right to say it. Just like yesterday when I said Jimmy Hills, Java with Jimmy, what he said was disgusting and vile to me. But he did not incite violence, at least the part that I listened to. And so I would defend his right to say it, even though it's disgusting. And so when the Democrat Party split from that standard and decided that speech was violence and that motive was violence, as we discussed yesterday with hate crimes, and I told you that I first heard about hate crimes about 29 years ago when I was working on a congressional campaign. When they started to move away from that Skokie landmark position, then they started to criminalize thought. That is an incredibly slippery slope. Incredibly slippery slope. Let me tell you what happened today as we mark the 1 week since the shooting. And I think things are starting to thaw out, or whatever the phraseology you want to use. I made a couple of calls, but I also had any number of inbound calls and direct messages. I spoke to more candidates, potential candidates, and political operatives today than I have all year. This thing here, the cell phone, yeah, I got one of those giant flip things. Yeah, it's kind of cool. I'm also blind as a bat, so it helps out. That thing almost, like, I thought it was going to melt. I had one thing after, I had way more political calls than I did actually real estate calls. And that could be the first time, like, forever today. People are starting to be like, okay, this is what I'm going to be doing in 2026. And since I don't have any interest in being your political consultant, I've already done that. I don't have any interest in that. There is one risk in calling me for advice, and that is, I'm just going to tell you how it is. So today, I'll just give you an example of two pieces of advice that I gave. Let's go with the negative one first. Someone called me up and they were like, before they called me up, they were like, please watch my video, and we'll leave the names out of it, by the way. And so back and forth, this and that. And it's about a district that I know a lot about, even though that doesn't matter for this story. And I told, and we got to the talking to the video. And I said, your video sucks. And I had never met this person. I've only ever talked to them on the phone. And I was like, first I said, are we going to meet in person soon, or is this going to be a phone call? And he's like, probably just a phone. I was like, okay. So I almost asked them, do you want me to just be like the sugar-coaty friend? Or do you want me to just tell you how it is? Because your video sucks. So, by the way, if you want some free and unsolicited advice about how to make campaign video in 2025, 2026, all you got to go do is go watch Zoran for an hour. If you're not making campaign video like he is, then you're not understanding how to communicate in 2025, 2026. Go watch every one of his videos. Now, the guy I was talking to was like, the campaign consultants haven't given us the green light for that. Here's the thing. It's 2025. You don't need permission from anybody anymore. Get this very sophisticated thing, put it into your candidate's hand, have them go watch an hour or two of Zoran and start making some videos. Then you can go deeper and like, how much does my logo kind of pop off the screen like Zoran? If I'm going to buy ads to promote this on Facebook and maybe Instagram, do my ads look like Zoran ad? It's real simple. I know none of you, I don't think any of you, agree with Zoran on any issue. Like I don't. Nothing. Right? But the guy's got talent and he made great videos. Well, Jack, it cost a lot of money. No, actually, it didn't. If you look at his campaign, he started off with very little money. Well, should I be on the phone calling? No, understand that your content helps your fundraising go easier because people are willing to donate to somebody who looks like they could win, who looks like they have talent. That talent now is the number one variable. Money is important, agreeable, but talent, especially with the algorithms of how they work and what we call the TikTokification of the algorithms, talent is what you don't need 1 million followers now to get 1 million views. You can get 1 million views with 2 followers, right? It's talent and the quality of your content that is the variable. By the way, great to have you here today. Thank you so much, Wendy. Nice to see you today. Thanks so much for having us or being with us. The other candidate that I talked to, I gave some unsolicited advice because I didn't think I thought they undercut themselves or they're much more talented than what they were thinking about running for. I said, you should run for a higher office. Then I had somebody else message me and tell me that I was right about something that I said like about a week ago or something. And I was like, well, that's very nice of you. Way more phone calls. And so we don't really know what the long-term impact of what happened last Wednesday is. But so many people said, you've just released 1,000 Charlie Kirks, 10,000 Charlie Kirks, 1 million Charlie Kirk. I'm getting the sense that that might be the case. All right, let's get into the show. Maura Healey, this is just breaking now. Maura Healey from Chris Van Buskirk. I have got to be the most prolific retweeter of Chris Van Buskirk. Maura Healey laughed Wednesday when asked if she supported changing the state flag seal in motto. I don't mean to laugh, but everything that's going on right now, I support that there was a legislative commission to look at this. Now, understand that statement. If this was 2020 or 2021, the rage of the George Floyd thing, and she was governor at that time, they could not have changed the flag fast enough if this was 2020, right? If she was governor in 2020, it would have already been changed. I don't think there's any dispute in that. But she wasn't. Charlie Baker was, and so the flag stayed the same. Being a longtime criminologist, criminologist, or Maura Healey watcher, Kremlin, same thing, really, isn't it? You've got to pick up the nuance of what this statement means. It's this because this watching Maura Healey is a lot like watching the Kremlin and seeing who's standing next to who as the military parade goes by, like in the late 70s and early 80s. The fact that she's basically punting on this topic of the flag means that highly likely she's probably pulled this issue. Or she's just sensing the atmosphere, but there is not a big appetite right now to change the flag. It's just not there. It's just not there. Brian Shortsleeve has stood up for the state flag recently. I remember in the last couple of days he was pretty vocal on that. And the whole topic of flags was in the news over the weekend because of people opposing that the flag was lowered for Charlie Kirk. So here's more from Chris Van Buskirk here. I appreciate the endeavors by others. This is the governor. But until further discussions and recommendations, even though the commission has already made their recommendations, I'll continue to be here. Well, until January of 2027. And that flag will continue to be here. Well, that sounds like she's not changing it. That sounds like she's not changing it. And understand the nuance of this. We're winning. Right? She is either pulled or has her hand on the pulse, and she knows, unlike 2020 or 2021, there is not the appetite to flip the flag to one of those disgusting options that came out. I think it was Matt Taibbi who said it best, who's originally from Massachusetts, if I'm not mistaken, that it looked like the flag that belonged to some type of European sanitation department in some big city in Europe, like the Geneva Sanitation Department or Public Works Department. I think that was a pretty good quip by, I'm pretty sure that was Matt Taibbi who said that. But understand that this is one of these types of things that Maura Healey will try to say that she is trying to court the center, right? Because she's trying to court the center while also doing her best not to piss off the left. Because I am convinced she's definitely concerned, and it would be a complicating factor. The best thing that could happen for us as Republicans here in Massachusetts would be if Maura got an opponent on the left, right? That would be really good news. There is rumblings that Alan Leventhal, sponsored by George Reagan, or is it Reagan? Reagan Communications. Alan Leventhal. Alan? Yeah, Alan. Might run for office. But they've been incredibly cagey of whether he's running as a Republican, a Democrat, an independent. I would imagine it would be Democrat or independent. And it came out today that his consultant is Doug Rubin. You remember Doug Rubin from the Deval Patrick days and whatnot. Great to have you here with us, by the way. Thank you so much. And thank you, Ron, for reposting the stream. Very nice of you. Thank you. So if Leventhal runs as a Democrat, she'll probably crush him, but she'll be busy doing that. Well, we'll also have a primary. So there's that, right? Much better. And I should be clear, she actually already does have a primary. God, I can't remember who it is, but it's really not a strong candidate. And it is possible that candidate will not make it out of the convention. And since we do have Wendy on the phone today or on the call, Wendy, remind me, is the rule still in place? If you know, you can put it in the comments, Wendy. Do you still need to get, is it 15% of the convention in order to be on the ballot, which I think will now be September 1st? And is that for both the Republican and the Democrat conventions? Do you need 15%? Or maybe I'm a little fuzzy on the rule. I always thought that there was a threshold that you needed to get of the delegates at the state convention to be on the ballot. And if you didn't get that percentage, then you did not advance to the next round, which would be the primary. Anybody who wants to fact check me on that, but I imagine Wendy would know more than anyone. But if anyone knows, you can put it in. There's always a Massachusetts angle. Again, Chester Tam, UNC Wilmington, Falmouth resident Zofia Zambrano caught on camera vandalizing a memorial to Charlie Kirk. Let's take a listen.
I'm fully religious too.
We know that she's the
Oh, I do, but Charlie Kirk is definitely not the morals I support or the religion I support, where you're just taught to love your neighbor.
Well, our
not hate your
religion
neighbor.
I was taught to love your neighbor, and since my neighbor Charlie Kirk, in the biblical sense, just got murdered, I'm going to deface his memorial.
Yeah, love your neighbor.
So if you disagree, so this is loving your neighbor.
I'm not gonna love a man who doesn't even.
You don't have to.
You're not loving your neighbor. You're not loving your neighbor.
The crowd is doing their work for me. Thank you very much, crowd.
You're right. I'm not judging. It is not my right to judge. But it is also not your right to judge either.
No, we're here protecting somebody. We're not here judging.
And we're not.
I don't know about you, but it would take me, if I was with at UNC Wilmington, it would take all the restraint I had not to dump the can of paint, right? But of course we want to take the high road. When they take the low road, we take the high road, right? Turn the other cheek, all the good things. But the paint can could have just slipped out of her hand. That's all I'm saying. Let's see. We have some input. The rules different. The rules are different from ours. Okay. You are right about the Republicans, but the Democrat rules might be different. So that is my recollection, is that you need to get 15% of the Republican convention vote in order to advance to the primary. And I believe the Democrats have some similar type of rule, but the percentage might be different. And there is some type of threshold that you need to meet. And it's yeah. I'm sure it's one of these things that it's totally on the level in the Democrat convention, and there would be absolutely fair when the Democrats meet, and just the epitome of democracy at their convention. So I'm sure everybody will get a fair shake at the Democrat convention, I'm sure. All right. You've seen this story. Massachusetts Teachers Association calls for no action in reacting to Charlie Kirk's death. Boston Herald headline. Let's listen to the story from Fox 25.
Districts should not punish teachers who have posted controversial messages about Kirk's assassination. The MTA's president and vice president claim that extreme conservatives are launching attacks against teachers who commented on the shooting. The MTA is calling for administrators to defend teachers against harassment and protect their rights. Several school districts throughout the state placed teachers on leave who posted their thoughts on the shooting.
Hey, again, if you want to say something bad about Charlie Kirk, go right after. Go ahead. Go ahead. But you might want to remember that you're a public school teacher. And if you want to go say something that incites violence or celebrates violence or endorses violence, you might want to remember that you're a public school teacher. So there's a line. There's a line. There is an absolute distinct difference between something that's of incredibly bad taste, vile and disgusting, versus something that incites and celebrates or endorses violence. Those are two different things. And the way I see it, the vast majority of those things that flew by the internet over the last 6-7 days, especially here in Massachusetts, have been an endorsement celebration of violence. And so, yeah, it's okay for us as, you don't even have to be a conservative, and it shouldn't be a conservative Republican thing. It should be just a human decency thing. What happened to the Democrats when they think that, as Chester Tam said, when is it morally acceptable to endorse or celebrate someone's murder? This should not be a partisan thing. That's like literally why, if we actually had a real leader, the governor would have come out and made a video and said, I support the freedom of speech. And in fact, I'm not even going to come a further. What I really would have loved to see, I would have loved to see Keneally, Shortsleeve, and Maura come together. That would have been real leadership. They together could have made a 1.5-minute video, like 30 seconds apiece, and come together. Imagine if our leaders actually did that. Imagine if the three of them actually, imagine if just the two of them did it. Imagine if just Shortsleeve and Keneally did it. It's too late now. Well, I mean, it's never too late, but it's kind of too late. Imagine if they came together in a 45-second video and said, together, I'm Brian and I'm Michael, and together we're absolutely horrified by the attack on Charlie Kirk and the attack on what it means to speak freely in our First Amendment, condemning the violence, expressing their condolences to the Kirk family, and invite the governor to be part of that. That's the type of leadership that's lacking here, right? That's the type of leadership that's lacking from especially the governor. But I would have loved to see that happen from Cornelian Shortsleeve. Put the campaign aside for an hour, meet up anywhere, and record the video. Hi, I'm Brian. I'm Michael. We wanted to come together on this important issue. Sure, we're on the campaign trail seeking your support for the Republican nomination for governor, but this issue here transcends that, and we wanted to speak directly to you. That's what people want. People want leaders. That we just had a massive opportunity for you to lead, Maura, Michael, and Brian. And Maura totally whiffed. Michael and Brian did better. But if they could have come together and made this video, either with the two or the three of them, that would have really sent a message about the importance of peace and nonviolence. And I know the governor, I don't know the governor, but it seems obvious if you're a criminologist like I am, it appears to me that the governor has a heightened concern for her own safety beyond historic norms for most governors, of which might be totally justified. But I think that is probably what is behind her vagueness about her schedule, those types of things. The fact that when she goes on vacation, she doesn't even tell you where she's going or when she'll be back. I think all of that is part of, at least some of it is part of a concern for safety, even though she could be somewhat transparent. You know, I'm going to Quebec for the weekend. Well, that's pretty wild. Like, Quebec's a big place, right? Yeah. So that's just my point. Like, that was an opportunity for real leadership. It didn't happen. But I was proud of the leadership of Carrie McRae this morning. In my inbox, like first thing this morning, State Senate candidate Carrie McRae blasting Mass Teachers Association. Taxpayers are not bullies for asking how their money is spent. And otherwise, like, what teachers are you hiring? Are you hiring teachers that condone violence? We're not being a bully by asking that question. This is a cynical attempt to silence opposition by painting every critic as dangerous. Nice job, Carrie McRae. First thing in the morning. By calling us extremists because we don't endorse murder, that is just like up is down, down is up, war is peace. Ignorance is strength. Thanks for calling it as it is, Carrie McRae, this morning. They're literally part of the dead white guy says. They're not looters, they're posers. Yeah, more definitely. In regards to the Teachers Association, I thought this comment from Newman on X today was exceptional. Wow, they are okay with teachers literally cheering and celebrating someone's death. This is a new low, even for Massachusetts. So glad my last one is a senior this year. It is one thing not to like him or the things that he says, but another to literally be gleeful in someone's life ended. And or Newman, I would add, to tolerate that amongst your own ranks. right? And remember why the Teachers Association exists. It's a job protection racket, right? That's exactly what it is. It's about the jobs. Keep the gravy train going. We're going to strike even though it's illegal. And then when the inevitable budget cuts come and 7 janitors lose their job, or the guys at the Department of Public Works lose their job, F them, we save the teacher jobs. That's all. They're thugs. Literally. When you're endorsing violence and you're saying that your own members who endorse violence can stay and that attacking them is extreme, they are thugs. Good news, since we're talking about schools. Chelsea school enrollment drops as ICE cracks down. Once again, if you're here in the country legally, like you're a citizen or you have some other type of paperwork that, wait a second here we go. You have some other type of legitimate paperwork, then you have nothing to fear. So buried down, because I'm the knucklehead that actually reads these articles, buried down, way down here after the second photo is some data. And I'll tell you what it said. About 1,000 students, just shy, 990 students have left the Chelsea schools in the last year. Where did they go, Jack? Well, 250 of them went back to Central America. 50% or 500 of them, since the percentage is very easy to factor, 500 of these kids went to other states, mostly red states that also were warmer. Florida, Texas, Alabama, Arkansas. Gonna send you back to Arkansas, right? If you don't do right. Good old Ray. And 25% of them went to other communities here in Massachusetts. Now, if you factor in that, given Chelsea, I think it's fair to say that Chelsea probably has a higher population of kids that move on any given year. And of course, kids, might move from Chelsea to Everett. There might be a lot of movement naturally. 75% of them left Massachusetts. I'm calling that a win. And half of them went to red states, which are also warm. So they left commie Massachusetts to go to freedom-loving states that are also warmer. And then 25% of them, or 250 of these Chelsea students, went back to whence they came. Again, calling that a win as far as I'm concerned. Since we're talking about immigration, hundreds were detained in ICE Burlington office for multiple days, data shows. Also from BUR. Let's be perfectly clear. The far left, in prompting these stories on BUR about how awful the Burlington office is, they do not want the Burlington office to get better. They don't want the Burlington office to expand. No, they want to close the Burlington office. They don't want to make it better. They want to close it. They also want to close the Plymouth House of Correction to federal detainees or federal ICE detainees. So here in Plymouth County, where I am, beautiful Plymouth here, we have what they call a 287G agreement with the sheriff, our great sheriff, McDonald, here in Plymouth, and ICE. So ICE can send us guests at the Plymouth jail and build it, and they will come, as my old friend Jack DeMello used to say. So they want to get rid of that too. Understand that the left doesn't want conditions to get better. They want all of the capacity of ICE to go away. If Trump announced tomorrow that he was going to build a miniature alligator Alcatraz somewhere in Massachusetts, and the conditions were going to be spectacular. If he was going to build the Trump Tower Ritz of ICE detainment centers, and who's going to put it in Massachusetts, where literally these people would be watching, flat screen TVs. The whole thing, it was going to be awesome. The left would be against that because it's not that they want the condition. They don't want Massachusetts to have any of this capacity because they don't want ICE anywhere. They don't want ICE anywhere. They don't want ICE anywhere. Get ICE out of Massachusetts. That's exactly what they want. The only reason why they're bashing the Burlington office is because they want it shut down, not expanded, not it cleaned, not a new facility. They don't want any of that. They want to get rid of the capacity. Brian Shortsleeve sent this video. I'm going to just play without the music here as we talk, and you can see it here on the screen. Maybe we'll go full screen so you can see it best. This is the migrant hotel, the Healy Hotel, in what Brian Shortsleeve is now calling the Keneally Hotel. This is the Keneally Hotel, the first one. And some of you might remember that this is the one on Route 3A. It's in Kingston. And you also might remember that I've made 2, maybe 3 videos from this location because it's the closest Keneally Hotel to my house. And this is what it looked like this summer as they cleaned it out. Fridges out the wazoo. It was just, I've seen this as I drove by, but I never stopped. For whatever reason, I never stopped to get footage. But somebody stopped to get footage. Oh, that looks nice. They had to gut the hotel. And you paid for it. Yeah, awful. And Shortsleeve's going on the attack recently. Shortsleeve's basically saying, hey, this here was not a Healy Hotel. It was a Keneally Hotel. Let's bring up the post again. In October of 2022, then Housing Secretary Michael Keneally converted this hotel into the first migrant hotel. I remember the press conference. It was going to press conference. It was a press conference at Plymouth Town Hall. Without notice to local officials. This footage, the press conference came afterward. The footage from this summer when migrants finally left and the hotel had to be gutted. State is not turning over records to show the expense, but similar repairs at Taunton Hotel cost $30,000. Remember, there were Keneally hotels before there were Healy hotels. Ooh, that sounds like an attack ad. That sounds like an attack ad for sure. And since we're talking about immigration, Lawrence men charged with manufacturing counterfeit pills. Lawrence men, 2 Lawrence men, Jose Lantigua. Isn't that the same name as the former mayor of Lawrence? Isn't it? I think it might be. And not to say that they're related. I'm just saying that's the same last name. And Manuel Santana Soto, both of Lawrence, were charged with 1 count of conspiracy to manufacture, distribute, and possess an intent to. Here are the drugs. These are counterfeit. I think these are counterfeit meth. With that, there was another post here. Oh wow! Look at all the stuff they seized. Damn, they're cooking it up. This is Walter White situation right here. Yeah, conspiracy to manufacture, distribute controlled substance with intent to distribute, manufacture, 20 plus years in prison, blah, 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 blah. Fine of $1 million. Yeah. Now, none of that, of course, has anything to do with the open border during the Biden administration. And don't even think it. It's a crime to think that. More immigration. Speaker Ron Mariano and his budget chief, Aaron, say they have not reviewed Governor Healy's proposal to make driving public record. So we spoke about this yesterday. When they went to illegal driver's licenses here in Massachusetts, they sealed the driving records of everyone, because they didn't want the feds to use the driving records to track down the illegal aliens. And now, theoretically, Governor Healy has filed a bill to make all of these records public again. But I think this is kind of like a passive-aggressive move by the governor. She's saying that she's filing, but she's not going to fight for this, right? This is a classic political move of how you propose something, and then you say to your friends, "Yeah, I'm just doing this for the headline. Yeah, don't even think about passing this thing, right? I'm gonna file it to make myself look good." And I'm not really interested in it. Yeah, you do whatever you want with it. I'm just filing it to make it look good. That's exactly what's happening here. And she's really smart about doing. She's really smart, really good at. She has talent at being incredibly deceptive. Understand, she is as far left as anybody, but she's amazingly skilled at creating a perception that she's a middle of the road type of person, which she is not. So yesterday we heard from the Senate budget chief, if I'm not mistaken, saying he had some concerns. And now we're hearing from the speaker and the House budget chief saying that they might have some concerns. Here's some more pictures from the North Shore Gang Task Force, from the Lawrence men charged with manufacturing counterfeit pills. We recovered about 18 kilos of suspected narcotics in the pill press during one of our searches. Nice job, FBI. So Connecticut, since we're talking about immigrant, we won't spend a lot of time on this story, but Connecticut, today or yesterday, have now banned ICE agents from wearing masks and making arrests in courthouses. As I don't know if they've ever heard of this thing called the Supremacy Clause, but they're trying to make Connecticut courthouses a no-go zone for ICE agents. Of course, we already have that in Massachusetts, effectively, don't we? Judge Backdoor, right? Of course we do. Hold on a second here. All right, we're doing good. That can wait. So there's this story brewing, and one of our fan of the show, thank you very much, Angry Survivor, has been on top of this issue, and I've been reading their posts on X, and apparently Falmouth Police, Falmouth again in the news, had some significant knowledge of a potential school shooter for, do I want to say weeks before actually telling anybody? And now the kid has been arrested after he was found snooping around the backside of the school in the woods, and he's been granted bail. Fox 25.
That has left many families there reeling.
And some say that they don't feel safe sending their kids to school now. Boston 25 News reporter Ryan Breslin is live for us outside of Barnstable District Court this morning. Ryan, some families are upset and they want more to be done to protect their kids.
Nicole and Jean, that's right. Some parents say that they'll be keeping their kids home from school today as that 18-year-old is set to be released with an ankle monitor. A judge making that ruling inside of this courthouse on Tuesday that Ian Fotheringham would be released on $2,500 bail. Now, he will be on house arrest while maintaining mental health treatment.
That'll stop him.
Can leave his home for legal and medical purposes, but another motion will be needed before he can return to school. Last week, Falmouth police responded to a
return to school
Falmouth School campus, parents are identifying as T-Ticket Elementary after reports of someone acting suspicious. Now, they say they found 18-year-old Fotheringham there with photos of the Columbine High School shooting on his phone. Investigators say they found a large 3D printer while searching his house capable of creating a gun. Fotheringham's attorney argued that the 18-year-old was at home when that was initially reported. Parents want to see more done.
He turned around and laughed at us when he got his decision. He doesn't care. He's not afraid of what's going to happen. We're afraid because those are our kids, those are our babies, and we can't go to school with them every day.
Fotheringham's family, they made no comments as they left the courthouse on Tuesday. I did reach out to the superintendent of schools here in Falmouth earlier this morning. She had sent a letter to families yesterday. In it, she said, starting today and for at least the next 2 weeks, Falmouth police, they will have detail officers at every elementary school with the SROs there as well. For now, we are live in Barnstable. Ryan Breslin.
SRO, that stands for School Resource Officer. Did I hear that correct? That they're considering that it's a possible outcome that this kid could go back to school? Yeah, everyone's innocent until proven guilty, but yeah, I don't know about that. Not too comfortable about sending this kid back to school, if it's me. There's another story about bail, and it also comes from Fox 25. Wow, another story about... I'm not going to get into this story here that deeply, but just listen to this.
Boston 25 News investigates.
25 investigates, asking why the man at the center of a federal drug case was arrested and released just 2 weeks before the feds picked him up. Boston 25 News was in Lawrence on Monday after federal agencies were involved in an hours-long standoff with the same man state police had in their custody days earlier.
So, yeah, you've probably seen this photo. Let me just bring that photo up again for you. You've probably seen this photo of how the feds had a basically breach this building, but the state police had this guy in their custody twice over the last couple of months. And so what he was doing out again, they released him September 2nd, I think it was. What he was doing out again, God knows what.
On Monday, Homeland Security and FBI agents surrounded a home on Roberta Lane in Lawrence with a federal arrest warrant for Luis Jose Nivar Cabral. Cabral is suspected of trafficking fentanyl in northern Massachusetts and Maine and has allegedly been involved in 3 home invasions. Police tell us he's a suspected member of the notorious Trinitarios gang. Law enforcement used a battering ram and deployed flashbangs to end the standoff and arrest Cabral. But
Good. I'm glad they did that. And it's just another example of the leniency of our courts. We had this guy twice. And then now finally the feds got him because of what happened through that video that you just saw. A perfect example of how lenient our court system is here. And we're not going to get into this case other than I still haven't heard Mayor Wu condemn the 5 men facing federal kidnapping charges in a disturbing Quincy case. Because in a situation of not ICE, but actual real life masked kidnappers, they kidnapped this guy, which was announced by U.S. Attorney Leah Foley yesterday. These guys kidnapped this guy, brought him up to Saugus, I believe it was, back in February, kidnapped him on gunpoint, and then tortured him. And then video called his family, basically extorting him for ransom. Actual real life masked kidnappers. Funny how we don't hear Mayor Wu condemning that. It's peculiar. I thought she was against all masked kidnappers and the ICE abductions. Doing my best not to swear today. Did you notice that? Did you notice? I don't think I've sworn all show. So it didn't take long before the gun safety advocates, to use my Howie Carr voice, pushed for industry accountability in Massachusetts. Didn't take long before they used the murder of Charlie Kirk to push for more gun control to erode the Second Amendment. Last Wednesday, conservative political figure Charlie Kirk was assassinated. I can't even believe. This is written by State House News Service at an event at Utah University, Utah Valley, prompting a national reaction, to say the least. The same day, there was also a shooting at Evergreen, Colorado, and a UMass lockdown. Supporters of the Massachusetts gun safety law say they are among the strongest and most successful in the nation, even though a 14-year-old was arrested with a machine gun yesterday in Boston. How did that happen? Though critics often claim that regulations burden law-abiding gun owners with excessive requirements, there's a push here from these gun control advocates to be able to sue the manufacturer in the case of an untimely death. So just another way to erode your ability. Understand that the reason why they are always, and this is right up Charlie Kirk's alley, the reason why they are always talking about gun control and gun violence is because they never want to talk about the number one aspect that feeds gun violence. Gun violence is, there's a perception that gun violence is mostly committed by young men. I think that's a fair assumption. Why is that? And if you look at the social programs from the Democrats over the last 50 or 60, almost 70 years now, almost all of them erode the family structure. They're an attack on especially fathers. It is fathers that say, especially to sons, whoa, oh, no, you can't do that. Right? As a father, that is effectively one of our most important jobs. Yeah, no, you're not going to do that. You're not going to be... Rule number one, going to the beach. You can't throw sand. And every other rule that we lay down, right? By the way, you can't throw sand at the beach. That is rule number one at the beach. Can't throw sand. But if there's no one there in the household that is going to lay down the law because mom just loves her kids too much, right? You know the dynamic. If you have a family, you know the dynamic. To one degree or another, you're familiar with this dynamic. And the simple fact of the matter, all of these social programs create dependency upon the government and votes while eroding the family structure, which has a result of creating young men who don't know where the line is in the sand, so to speak, between what's acceptable and what's unacceptable. And by eroding that father figure, we have what we have. Gun violence. It's not gun violence, it's absent father violence. Or, you know what I mean. By the way, tomorrow at the State House at 1:30, there'll be a press conference sponsored in part by Cape Gun Works or Goal or something like that, about this guy here, Ken Kulata, who, I got to be fair with you, I don't know a lot about this case. I've been mildly preoccupied over the last week. And so I'm going tomorrow. I'll be there at 1:30. I'll learn about it, and I'll report back to you sometime tomorrow. I don't know how I feel about it. I don't know anything about it, to tell you the truth. But tomorrow, I'll be there. If you're there, say hello. 1:30 at the State House. outside the State House, from what I understand. Thanks for joining us today. By the way, if you do have a comment, don't hesitate. Mass health officials recommend COVID-19 vaccine for all adults ahead of federal guidance. Now, this is a story that I am truly confused about. What I don't understand is that the Massachusetts health officials about COVID they're making a recommendation before the federal guidance comes out. Now, I was told during the whole COVID crisis that there was only one version of the science, which of course was embodied in one godlike figure, Lord Fauci. Remember that? How many times did you hear, we're following the CDC guidelines? We're following what the National Institutes of Health, we're following the CDC, we're following the CDC. NIH said this, NHI said that. There's only one science. Science is settled. There cannot be more than one science. So how is it before the federal government comes out with their recommendation, Massachusetts now has their own science? Kind of confused by that. How did that happen? How is it that there could be two versions of the science? The Northeast Public Health Collaborative, a group of public health agencies across the region, in other words, blue states from the Northeast, and then the federal government. By the way, just the overall approach, I'm fine with individual states coming up with their individual approaches to problems. I think Florida or South Dakota or a lot of places did a really good job. In fact, by the fact that we had effectively 50 different policies showed the strength of our system. And you could see, like, hey, boatload of people moved to Florida based on this only. They've since moved back to, they're called halfbacks. They now moved back to Tennessee because it's too hot. They all realized it was too hot in Florida. And so they're called halfbacks because they moved halfway back to New York or halfway back to Massachusetts. The point is, up until now, all of the Massachusetts people said that we have to follow the CDC standards. Now they're coming up with their own science. How is that possible? I just don't understand that. Then yesterday, this story over at WBUR. Rochelle Lewinsky. Do I have that name right? She says that JFK's or RFK Jr.'s appointed vaccine panel lacks expertise. You'll remember that it was her on MSNBC in March of 2021 who said, quote, "Our data from the CDC today suggests that vaccinated people do not carry the virus, don't get sick, period," end quote. And now she's telling us that RFK's panel doesn't have vaccine expertise. She's the one that says if you get the vaccine, you can't get the virus and you can't spread it. And it was her plus an army of other people like Nina Jakowinkowicz, you know, the woman that sang, and all the horrifically evil control freaks, of which probably the woman from New Zealand is best remembered, right? Jacinda. also said that you couldn't say that. Getting back to Charlie Kirk again. If you said something like the virus doesn't, depending upon which social platform you said that, if you said something like the vaccine doesn't work, and if you take the vaccine, you still might get the virus and you might still be able to spread it. If you said that, you probably got canceled on any number of different platforms. Until, guess what? It was true, right? It was true. Remember the breakthrough cases? And they were only like 3%. And I remember the Globe used to report the breakthrough cases. And I used to read that once a week. They'd put out an article, which I read because Charlie Baker wasn't publishing this data. And this was the same time that Kathy Hochul and Charlie Baker and the whole crew were out here telling us it's a pandemic of the unvaccinated. It's going to be a long, cold winter filled with death. And then guess what happened? They stopped reporting the percentage of breakthrough cases when it somehow hit somewhere north of 40%. And eventually here in Massachusetts, when they started reporting the data again, it ended up that there were times where the vast majority of people who were getting the virus were vaccinated. And now Rachel Walensky is telling us that RFK's panel doesn't have expertise. Do these people ever give up? Are they, the other day, someone I talked about this the other day, about 3 or 4 days ago now, about the important function of shame in society. And I've kind of felt like Gordon Gekko in the famous movie, Wall Street, right? Greed is good. Shame is good in the appropriate context. By the way, that famous scene in the ballroom where he speaks on the shareholders meeting, I'm pretty sure that was filmed in the basement of the Roosevelt Hotel, which used to be my favorite hotel in New York and became ground zero for the invasion. And I can't even imagine what the Roosevelt Hotel looks like today. If it looked like anything like that hotel that Brian Shirtsleeve just showed us in Kingston, I'm sure it's destroyed, which is really sad because it was one of the most beautiful and grand hotels of the city. My favorite hotel in New York, gone. I can't even imagine what it looks like now. It's horrific. But these people now who told us there could only be one version of the science now have their own version of the science. Unbelievable. All right. I will be with you tomorrow at the Statos tomorrow at 1:30 for the press conference on the Second Amendment. And then at the Charlie Kirk Vigil later, which I believe is at the Parkman Bandstand on the Common. I have seen any number of social media posts where people wrote the Commons, which just makes me like, I'd rather stick a sharp fork in my eye. It is not the Commons. It's the Common, singular. So I will be at I believe it's at the Parkman Bandstand tomorrow, 6:30 or 7-ish. A little late, but I'll see you there. I hope. Come up and say hello if you're there. Okay? Otherwise, you have a great day. Bye-bye.